Hello all, Unique Impact here, and welcome to GSC Podcast 2, and I'm here with Mitch. I'm here with Eglin and Billy and Lambo. So, would you guys like to say hi?
You interrupted my Hearthstone game.
I don't care.
Hi. Are you happy?
Billy, Lambo.
Should be, absolutely.
Hi, I'm Billy. I'm a chat mod on the GSC and nothing else.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Lambo. I'm an irrelevant event coordinator on the GSC.
That was a smooth intro. Okay.
That was better than the last one.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't watch the last one.
it's close. Okay. So, we're here for another delightful podcast. And is one of you echoing? Oh man, that's not good, is it?
That does not sound good.
Anyway. Wait, boo! Boo! It might be Lambo.
Oh, is it?
Because Lambo is the little green circle popping up on himself.
Yeah.
To a fantastic start.
Okay,
That's
what a great
scary.
start to the podcast. Anyway, guys, what are we talking about today? Because I don't know.
Me neither.
Oh, that's a shame. We
I
probably
just
should.
signed up
Avengers
half an hour
Infinity
ago.
War.
Yep. Thanos looks like Doomfist from
He
Overwatch.
looks like a genocidal
Okay,
purple
no.
thumb.
Right. What we are talking about is what makes a good Minecraft game show.
Whoa.
It's a big topic. It's even the topic is bigger than my house.
It is.
Yeah.
That's
but,
pretty big, man.
But I think we should start from the
Do you
beginning.
live in a shed?
Do you live in a shed? Oh
Live in a
no.
caravan.
Yeah, I do. Okay. So every good game show starts with a good idea. I mean, you're not going to make a fun game show that's going to be fun for the players and fun for the viewers if you don't have a good concept. Sorry, I've been interrupted by my sister.
Oh my god, you should be prepared. How
The secret
prepared
yes.
were you trying to be for this?
Look, I was trying to be
The
super
feeling
prepared.
that this has happened before.
Thanks for that, Lambo. Anyway, right. So, concept. How do you guys come up with a good concept for a show when you want a new show?
Or at least the concept is so bad that it's good.
Yeah, I suppose. Billy, do you want to kick us off here?
Well, I mean, you're asking the guy whose most shows are recreations of existing concepts, but I guess I could go to Elimination Game because that was like the first major concept I
But
sort of came up with.
even then, when you're recreating a concept of original show, you need to consider how you're going to remake it in Minecraft.
Yeah, how
Mm.
you
true as
translate
well.
stuff to Minecraft. You've got to consider all the variables. I'm gonna go to Elimination Game though because it's my favorite little concept. Everyone fucking loves it for some reason. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
I will.
Fucking great.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
You can
Elimination
swear
Game.
every other word if you want
It's
to.
a very simple concept that we just changed a small thing. We have one game where everyone plays, and then we have a game where the bottom two play, and it is like the simplest change to the standard elimination concept, but for some reason people loved it. So
Mm.
a concept
The
doesn't
builds are
have to
pretty good,
be. Yeah, the builds were pretty damn good, but that's not to do with the concept.
Mhm,
Um, The concept, basically, you don't need to have a crazy, unique concept. That's always good. But if you can just do something slightly unique with the standard formula, you can make something truly spectacular.
mhm. I'd like to point out as well, even your concepts like Raven, that made a pretty good Minecraft game show, even though it was originally a real game show.
Yeah, but that's because Raven is one of the best game shows in the universe and it
I
had a
know.
perfect, flawless
So-
system.
I guess there is also a point to be made that copying game shows from real world can make fun game shows in Minecraft too.
Let it be known that making
And Tagata as well.
Children.
Wow.
forcing children to fight an evil sorcerer is the best game show concept.
I know, right?
True.
Why
Um,
didn't I make this?
Lambo, how do you come up with concepts for game shows? I know you've made What is it now? About
Too many.
76 different concepts by this point. Yeah.
It's actually 77. So
It is
really,
now.
it's usually how I go about it. It's usually just me sitting down. I kind of like brainstorm what I think of I would want, like first thing, like how would I want to do an elimination? Would I want to make it like point based or something, or like I try to work out like things like this, and then at the end I'll try to put it all into a general concept. Another thing is like usually I'll have some sort of inspiration to base it off of. Like I'm gonna use my show Spot the Sneak since it's my most original concept as an example.
Not based off All for None, even slightly.
So I had the inspiration from the Wii Party game, Spot the Sneak. What a shock!
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, unique. It's all about
based it
you.
off of All for None.
To be fair, All for None wasn't an original
based off of the
concept
mole.
either. Yeah, actually, it was based off of Styx's Weakest Link, but okay.
Which is probably based off the mole.
No, I think that's just based off of Weakest Link.
Which is based off of the mole.
Oh no.
Everything is based off the mole. Who?
I've probably
is the
just
mole?
confused people by. Now they're probably wondering how All for None can be based off Styx's Weakest Link. I literally just wanted to make a game show that was like one team working together. That's why I made All for None, because I wanted to make a team board game like Styx had in season 1 of Styx's Weakest Link. That's why I made All for None.
I don't see why Anne
Interesting.
Robinson hasn't guest starred in Styx's Weakest Link yet. I think he could pull her in.
Right.
She's probably looking for something to do. I mean, she is like ancient.
I'm just gonna
I
get
mean,
my
she
Anne
is
Robinson
she
going.
is fucking haunted. Like at this point, if any sort of Botox that she uses wears off, she's gonna look like a ball sack. It's just gotten to that point.
She's gonna look like Cassandra from Doctor Who.
Exactly.
Haunted. I like that one.
Anyway, Aiglin, I know that you've not made any game shows yet, but if you were to make a game show, how would you go about thinking of an idea
I
for
want
it?
to be very specific here. I haven't done any of the placing of blocks in game shows, but when it comes to theory crafting and the general concepts, I have done a reasonable amount. I think that the general message to take away, above everything else, is that the standard format has been pretty much fully explored, and there are so many other formats, many of them which aren't even that different. Having teams of 2 or teams of 3, there are so many super cool things you can do with that. People just haven't done it for some reason. If I were making a game show, I'd use that approach.
Try and find some sort of like low-hanging fruit, a type of game show that's not really been explored to its fullest, and try and expand on that. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
That's an interesting-
Alternatively, you could basically just get yourself a normal show and come up with a concept that allows other people to record the show for you. Now that's genius.
I wonder if there's any shows like
If
that
you
out
can
there.
do that, you're
That
set.
sounds showrunner quality.
Yeah, POV2, great show. I'm really loving watching that. Anyway, I'd just like to quickly mention how I come up with ideas for game shows. I just sort of think of them. There's
Actually,
not really much more
those-
to it than that.
I think I explained one time how I come up with like concepts for games and
I think,
just shows and stuff.
and I think that
Probably
comes,
not best for the podcast.
that's a great segue
One's-
into our next topic, which is planning, thinking of games, deciding what order they're going to go in, how the show's going to go out. I think that's the next topic, really, isn't it? I think
No.
that is what's next.
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
list.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's the next
Absolutely
thing.
is,
That's
yeah.
the next thing on our notes list.
Even if it wasn't, it is now.
On
Okay.
notes of life.
So planning a game show is important, to say the least. It's if you don't plan your game show, you'll probably end up with a mess of random stuff like
It will be fucked beyond repair if you
Arguably.
don't plan.
Yeah.
You have to have preparation. You can't go
Now-
in blind.
I'll
The VE
talk,
strong.
I'll talk first about my planning techniques, and I tend to plan the show as I go in a way. I don't obviously build one game and then think of the next one. I tend to write all of my ideas down as I think of them, so that I can come back to them later. And then in the meantime, I might build something or go do something else. I don't know, but I think that's a good way of doing it.
It's very important you write your ideas down so you don't forget them. Because you might have a really good idea, and then, you know, an hour later, if you've got a memory like a dead fish,
like
me, you just forget them immediately. So you want to write those down.
Every Windows computer has a notepad program or a Word program.
Just
use it.
If there's one of those friends that you have on Discord that is just like you can essentially turn them into a recycling bin and just send them messages of your concepts and be like, what do you think? And essentially what you're doing there is you're writing down your ideas and you're getting somebody else's opinion, even if realistically you don't mind their opinion, you don't listen to it. Even so,
this is some master advice from Mitch here.
Unique would know. I do it to him.
Yeah.
Wholesome advice.
Lampo, I'm interested to see what your opinions on planning are.
So, I mean, like for me, creating like the challenge ideas is like, so first thing, like I try to think of something like some basic thing in Minecraft, like let me think. What random challenge can I come up with here? Let's use clickbaitifier from Pig Games. Why not? That was a fun one. So I kind of took, the idea of clickbait and tried to implement it into a challenge, which I did.
Actually, I think you've brought up a really good point here, actually. And that's if you want to come up with a good challenge, if you want to force yourself to think of a challenge rather than coming up with one naturally, try and think of something and then try and turn that into a challenge. Or another way you could do it, and this is something that I've done as well, is think of someone else's challenge and try and add a twist to it, like your own unique addition to their challenge or something. Something to make it yours rather than something that's clearly copied from someone else. Mitch would have experience with copying things from other people, but yeah.
What?
You've used my levitation wall in like 5 of Billy's shows.
No, but that's besides the point, though, really, isn't it? You made a
Ideas aren't
levitation
mutually
wall.
exclusive, though.
I made levitation wall better.
Whoa!
Yeah, okay. By trying to think of something, I mean like, okay, Windows.
Your levitation wall had just exited its mother.
Cool.
And I raised it.
Cool. Thanks for interrupting me. Nice podcast.
Carry on.
Okay. If you just thought of like something random, you can usually think of a way to maybe implement that into a game somehow. So it sounds dumb, but like I just thought of Windows, for example. Like a window smashing challenge or something like that. I don't know how that would play out because I've only thought about it for a few seconds. So. But I mean, yeah, you can that could lead to better ideas though.
There's actually a window smashing challenge in his next show. He's just secretly revealed it.
Oh, there might be now that I thought about it.
And then suddenly everyone watching the stream has a window smashing challenge in their next show.
Oh, will it be a Mac OS smashing challenge? That was a bad joke.
It's a challenge about stopping the endless flow of Windows updates.
Yeah. So, what's the best way to plan? I think do it. Wow, some great advice from me today. Just really any planning is better than no planning.
The thing,
definitely.
The thing I hate most in a game show is just when there's lots of waiting, and waiting is because of poor planning.
That's a good point. There's
Can I-
there's definitely problems you can avoid by planning. Anyway, Billy, what are you saying?
I wanted to add to the planning because I felt like you were going to move on to the next segment,
Go
and
on,
I thought
go
you were
on.
going to ignore me. So Unique brought up the whole planning about how you can just think of a concept, but I want to talk a little bit about the opposite side of the spectrum where you want to think out everything before, like you want to think about things in detail because there are some people out there who like to do that. You've got like these are just some basic things that you need to think about when you're planning your show. How big is the cast? How many challenges do you want in your show? A good way for developing challenges that I've done is I like to think about what each challenge requires of the player. And for example, in a show, I have like 2 challenges where players are going against each other in sort of a PvP style thing. And then I'd have 2 race style challenges. And I'd try and make sure that you have an even spread so that you've got a nice variety of challenges. It's a good way of getting a good mix and making sure that you don't double down or make orcs versus humans. It's a good idea, good fun.
There's definitely some merit to planning everything beforehand as well, because you could build something, for example, before you finish planning the whole thing, and then later planning makes you realize that the thing that you built is no longer a thing that you want in your show, and you could waste time doing that. So that's just another thing to think about.
I would talk
I've
about
had that
planning for
fun
like
time
recordings.
I think you should definitely have a decent amount of it done, but I don't think you necessarily need all of it done before you start the building. Okay, I think at this point we've pretty much exhausted the planning
I
category.
could talk for hours about planning.
Make sure your blueprints are not green.
And that's why you should probably leave if you don't want to hear us talk about planning for the next hour.
Anyway, what do you do?
So what is the topic of planning?
What do you
Make
do
sure
after
that-
you plan? What do you do after you plan? Well, obviously, if you're asking that question, you're stupid because the answer is you build the thing.
Wow, great idea.
So Billy, you're not very expertisey in this topic because you just outsource your building.
I do build occasionally. I built a lot of my early shows. I've built the first 2 seasons of Small Show by hand. So I do have experience. I'm just not as motivated to build. I don't take enjoyment in it. But I do think that the building is...
Neither do I
arguably-
take enjoyment in it.
We'll get to
Building
you
is
in a moment, Mitch.
Arguably one of the most important parts of your show, because your builds are what people are going to see when they click on your video or they watch your show. Those builds are going to be what makes people stay or go, because if it's a bedrock box, I mean, obviously I'm not going to, ignoring Small Show 1, let's ignore that and think of other examples. If it's a bedrock box and you've got a flat world and your contestant platforms are wall colors, no one's going to fucking watch it. You got to have it actually comes back to ideas and concepts. You've got to have something unique with your builds that makes it stand out and look nice.
The building of a show is almost like the art in a game, right? You look at a lovely game like Breath of the Wild. Just imagine if the graphics in that game were not as good. Sure, it still would have been a fun game, but it just wouldn't have been as impressive to look at. Right.
It's like you've got the gameplay on one side, but then the building is adding to the gameplay and making it look nice, making it like a Picasso or a Da Vinci. But I'm gonna pass it on to Mitch because he knows what he's talking about.
Wait, actually, no. Before we get to Mitch, I wanna know about Aiglin's opinion first, because I know Aiglin's got a pretty interesting opinion about building. So if you'd like to share that.
I didn't actually speak last section, so I'm going to kind of merge the sections into one. That was the plan.
Okay.
So it's more planning / building.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
in my opinion, the whole point of a challenge is to receive well, there are 2 sides to it, really. There's the player side and there's the viewer side. But screw the viewer, I'm going to focus on the players for the purposes of this.
Yeah, fuck the viewers.
Oof.
Yes, that's right. All of you. Okay, so
especially Adam.
Essentially, as a challenge creator, you have one goal. That is to get an optimal reaction from the people playing the challenges. how is this reaction defined? It's defined by their feelings. You want to have all of the. I'm going to talk very vaguely now, but try and encourage all of the positive feelings, none of the negative ones. For example, a challenge shouldn't contain elements that are frustrating or unfair, because that will obviously reduce people's enjoyment. My personal chaos.
That was a bit of glitchiness there.
People running around all over the place doing all kinds of things. I think that fosters a lot of fun. You can think about it an awful lot, but I think that's just about all I have time to say for the moment.
So basically, in your opinion, it's more about the funness of the game rather than the build.
Isn't that Striker's methodology?
That
Make the
is,
games
I think.
fun and fuck the builds.
And let's be honest, I do think that the enjoyability of the game is probably more important than the building. But let's be honest, right? The same game that looks better is inherently still a better game.
I didn't say it's not about looks. The looks
They definitely
help with these feelings. Indeed, all of the
help,
games
yeah.
mesh together. Sure, you can have one good parkour challenge, but if the entire show was full of that one good parkour challenge, it wouldn't be very, very fun. There is more to it than that.
It's like dating. You want to have someone who looks good but also has a good personality.
Disgusting.
That's an interesting analogy.
But it works.
I guess it does, yeah.
You're not wrong.
Now let's move on to the elephant in the room. Mitch, what's your opinion on building?
It sucks, but if you want to make sure, you gotta do it. Thanks.
That's sort of hoping. I was expecting you to say more because you're a builder.
Okay, yeah, I guess more.
You don't have to give a tutorial.
What do you? Does the chat have any questions about
Adam
it?
says that Billy's shows are the best by far, and you built them, Mitch. So use that like happiness and motivation.
Use that ego boost to fuel me to answer the question. No matter how. Oh my god, my opponent just conceded. You guys, I did it. I won. Holy shit!
Stop playing Hearthstone. Focus on the.
Sorry,
podcast.
now that distraction has been eliminated, really eliminated. Like that was brutal. Holy
Decimated.
Shit. The chat have any questions while I'm talking about building? Then sure. Well, what do you want me to talk about?
I mean, I guess you've already stated your opinion, haven't you? If you think building's important, it is. I mean.
Oh, it's 100%.
That's all there is to it.
What? People pay attention when your builds are good. Just. You know.
So, building is usually where most shows get stuck, I'd say.
Yeah.
Definitely.
A lot of shows will be you'll think of an idea, you'll plan it all out, and then you'll go to build like one challenge, and then you'll look at your challenge, and you'll just feel demotivated to maybe build the rest of the show, you know. So how do you guys get around, like, I guess, this colossal task of having to create an entire game show?
I just drag more and more people into it and hope that they go more.
Yes.
It is a fact. You're probably gonna get burnt out, but you just gotta push through that. I mean,
you know, there's gonna be a massive payoff at the end.
Yeah.
Lambert,
I think
do you build everything yourself, or do you have a build team, Lambert? Okay, thanks for the response.
Let's just appreciate.
What were you saying, Billy? Let's go back to that.
I think it helps when you're building a show if you know sort of how big the show is going to be at the end. Like not as in like how big literally it's going to be, but the show, I think you will be more motivated to finish if you know it's going to have a payoff. If it's a smaller show that perhaps you're not as comfortable with, you might not be able to get through the burnout to finish it. But if you've got this massive project, chances are it will be finished eventually. You just gotta push,
and
like you're giving birth.
And as
100%, when it comes to building, your best existing images for inspiration. That's the best way to go.
No, that was not a good time for my headset to come up. I don't know if the stream missed that, but do you want to just say that again in case they did?
Do you guys catch that?
I don't know.
Bullshit.
My my headset cut out. I'm just. Did you say anything important, Mitch?
Oh, they caught it. They caught it.
Okay,
Sorry.
cool.
Good hands, Stream. Good hands.
Nice.
Nice job, guys. You got ears.
Right. I can't comment on what Mitch just said because I didn't hear it.
You just did.
Said look at pre-existing tutorials and images just for building.
Of
Like
course, of
if
course.
you're first getting into building, you need. It always helps to have inspiration. Don't build something really. If you have a challenge that's, don't build something overly chaotic. Don't build don't. It comes back to planning as well. Don't plan something where you got to build too much for yourself.
I guess that's an interesting point. Yeah.
When you say chaotic, you
Don't
mean
set
chaotic as
something
in-
up that'll take the build team a month to build.
It's also building's really complicated in many ways. It's also the fact that you have to balance the build with the gameplay. You don't want, for instance, you need like in TDM9 when we did the what is it, the Splatoon game, we had to think about where they're gonna, where the contestants are gonna come in from. The bottom sort of area of the arena that wasn't used a lot, but it was still very important in ensuring a win. It's best that you get as much planning for the challenges and the show itself done, the concept, so that when it comes to building, you have as much knowledge. You can just go in there and build. Really, you have everything already planned out. You don't need to think of it on the spot and spend an hour thinking about what you want to do.
Oh, and if you make a bunch of big challenges, make sure you do your show in multiple recording sessions. Otherwise, your contestants will get burnt out or irritated.
I think we'll get to that when we get to the recording part.
When Mitch says chaotic, I think he means chaotic as in the managing sense, not as in the gameplay sense.
Chaotic neutral.
Yeah.
You won't. I mean, you
And
won't.
then there's me doing a 14-hour recording
Don't
session.
go super chaotic, but when you're making games, have things that are going to be interesting.
Don't go into your first
At
game show
least.
expecting to build a giant island to play to gather on, or something like that.
You need to start small, because if you start small and you make a small show, no pun intended,
Lol.
and it works and you finish it and you get it up, you're going to be more motivated to do your next project. And you've got to build up to the big shows. I started with Raven Season 1. It was possibly the most basic show I'd ever done. Editing-wise, we'll get to that later. It was kind of crazy, but the build-wise, pretty simple, pretty easy to host. And then I built up.
And actually,
And
if you,
I think
there are a lot of
other
people.
other
Sorry.
showrunners have done that too. That's what's
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
say.
And that,
Meeting a pasty.
there's a. I want to
What
address
pasty?
people who try to start up build teams before they've even made like that much of an impact, like with their game shows or whatever, right? There are people. I don't want to name anyone, but like, I see people who like try to start up build teams. They like send out applications to everyone, and they might wonder why no one actually joins. And it's because you've got to earn up enough of a reputation or ask your friends. You can't just ask people and expect them to join. I don't really know where I'm going with
Okay,
this.
so
but
who wants to bring up that one person who I think I'm thinking of?
There's more than one person.
it's more than one, actually, yeah.
Yeah,
It's actually quite a few.
there's one I have in mind though
Yeah,
right now.
I'm
There's
sure it's the
usually quite
same
young.
person. I'm sure it's the same
Bring
person.
it up.
So the free space here was space for wisdom.
But
This is
if-
clearly a real talk chat. Let's
But
go.
here's the thing, though,
Fair
right?
point.
Absolutely.
You build a game show, you gain a bit of popularity. A few people will come in and help you. That'll make your next one better. You'll get even more popularity.
What?
You'll get more popularity. More people want to help you, and it becomes easier, sort of. With like, and your projects will get bigger, but you'll get people to help you out.
Also, if you want to host a build team, make sure that you've got experience in actually leading a team, because if you don't know what to do as a host, as Adam says in the Twitch chat, he says people get accepted and the host is confused on what to do. As a host and as the host of the build team, you have to lead them. And I've had problems with that in the past. I almost lost my entire build team because I fucked that up, but I'm trying to do better now.
Anyway.
But basically, don't take your build team for granted and make sure they know what they're doing, because if they don't know what they're doing, they won't do anything.
Anyway, I think that's probably everything we should talk about for building.
The majority of build teams actually just wait to be. Sorry, when Adam Billy's point really quickly.
Okay.
The majority of people on build teams, unless told otherwise, they just wait to be given stuff to do, and most hosts never do that. Please do go on.
So,
Yeah.
after everything is built, or while you're still building it, there is another important phase that you need to be thinking about. And this one is possibly the most overlooked phase.
The idea
of the entire. No, we've already gone past this. This is the most overlooked phase, I think, of the entire game show creation process, and it's testing. And I see too many shows that just haven't been tested, and it's obvious because things go wrong and challenges break, and it's just like the games are unfair, etc. Right? And planning will help you deal with that. Billy and Mitch. What are your experiences with planning yourselves?
Planning is
not planning,
something...
testing.
Testing is something that can both, like, even if you test a show, there is still a chance that things can go wrong, but it is good to, if you've got maybe a redstone intensive challenge or something that you can tell might need fine tuning, you should test it. See how people find it. Do they find it too difficult? Do they find a challenge frustrating? That's the sort of thing you can pin down in testing, so you can reevaluate what you think. Because I've mentioned this a lot of times with Mitch, but with challenges, the host's definition of what is difficult and what is acceptable is often different to what the contestants would deem acceptable and difficult. So you have to be very careful with that balance.
Do you know how annoyed I am every time I play like a parkour game, and then like halfway through the host starts making it easier?
Neos, and they make it easier.
Yeah, the host starts making. Why couldn't it just been fun and easy from the start? I don't understand why you have to make your parkour courses so hard.
Unless it makes sense.
Testing is something that, for where me and Billy are concerned, that Billy doesn't get involved with a lot. I'll mainly get people together. It might be, we had a large team, so essentially when it came down to testing, I pretty much just got like people who didn't actively build that challenge.
Usually I'd actually compete in the testing. I just
What
do you guys
think?
Going testing himself.
What do you guys think the best way to get testers is for a game?
Do everyone in the GSC.
No.
Depends.
I mean, you definitely get a lot of testers that way, but oh man.
Host a GSC event.
Host a GSC event. Call it something, but then don't tell them it's actually a challenge.
It's always this thing, though, right? Because testers are actually quite difficult to get. Because for one, you're trusting more people with like the knowledge of your game show. Two, people might not want to test because they think they've got a chance of getting in.
It's tough.
Three, getting enough people together at the same time. That's the other thing.
The worst part is when someone wants to test, or you want someone to test their game show. They're like, "No, I want a chance to get in," and you're like, "We're not going to cast you." In your head,
you don't want to tell them that, do you? That's rude.
Switcheroo.
It feels like Mitch has been trying to say something.
Often, what I do is
I've been trying to win my Hearthstone game.
Fuck's sake.
I'll try and let people test who I can trust, but I usually do the testing after the casting, which we'll get to in a moment.
I do think that we should go into how non-showrunners could get testers, because I know it's much harder for them to find people.
So, Lambo, you're a non-showrunner. How would you go about testing your shows?
So, what I usually do, so like what I would want to do is see if any of the crew members for the show I'm working on, since I actually have crews for my shows, and then I'll pull some people from my Discord who would be willing to test and maybe are eligible to compete. Like for my next pig games, to use an example, I'm not putting in any returning players, so any returning players who are on would be able to test. Like, really, if anyone's on, I'm just like, let's go with it. And
To
of
be
course,
fair,
since
you
I have a
do-
lot of shows, like I'm not gonna tell them you can expect to see this show in pig games. Like,
You do have still quite a big following though, don't you? Even though you're
Yes.
not a showrunner.
event coordinator pride.
So I suppose using you as an
Rather
example
than
is not the
they-
fairest. But how could someone who's not a showrunner and doesn't have like a lot of people they could go to, how could they get
Like,
enough people to do testing? Do you think?
like,
Get their
I mean,
friends.
I think it-
That's what I was
Just
thinking. To be
go-
honest.
Go ask some people.
Mm.
Like,
Ask some people publicly, and then if not, ask your friends.
what you
'cause
could do is get a group of testers together. Not just ask people when it comes around, but try and get yourself a group. That would probably be the most ideal thing for when you need something to be tested. Another thing you can do, you can self-test things, right? I repeatedly self-test my games, whatever I build. And then I get Rick in, who attempts
Can
to break
confirm.
everything. That's really, really important. Get somebody who can just attempt to break everything you've built. Everything will crumble, perfectly
just get
balanced.
people who are gonna pick every little fucking detail that's wrong
Mhm.
to test.
What
'Cause
was
Rick,
what was Aegon gonna say?
very important.
What, on the subject of testing?
Yeah.
I don't really think I have much else to add. You
Oh.
guys have covered it quite well.
You were gonna say something, but I guess you've lost that thought.
That's why I blame Hearthstone.
Oh, okay. Why are you all playing Hearthstone?
It's just a really casual game to play
Before they're
while
playing
you're,
Hearthstone against each other.
Right.
while you're just in a podcast talking about game shows. It's
True.
nice, casual, slightly stress-inducing,
Slightly stressing.
nonetheless. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
When somebody
No,
plays
I do think
Deathwing, it
they've
isn't the
been very-
best.
What's-
They've been very thorough.
So, the other thing to talk about in testing, other than who to get to test, is how should you test? How much should you test? Like, what parts of your show
And
should you
that's
test?
the most important.
I will admit
Preferably, on the case
Okay,
of
interrupt
Tagata,
me,
you
it's fine.
should probably test like a year before you actually even consider recording the show. That's a good idea.
Yeah, but even when we tested, we still fucked up. Do you remember the merge carpets? They never changed color.
Besides the point,
Oh, did you actually leave that scene in the episode?
Well, we couldn't change the colors, and I'd already said you merged, so I couldn't do anything. That worked before we started recording.
Great. In the past, I've not been a great person when it comes to testing. I've skipped it several times, and I've had a few terrible horror stories due to it. For example, you may not have noticed this because I did a very good job of editing around it, but in AFN 4, if anyone remembers that game with the massive water temple, you had to go get emeralds, I think it was.
Was that the one I was in?
No, you were in AFN 5.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a game where there was this water temple that floods, and then all the water goes away over a span of like 25 minutes. And being a stupid idiot like I was, I didn't actually test it, and the water actually did flood the temple. But I got the redstone wrong, which drained it. So I actually spent the second half of that challenge world editing the water away layer by layer. But if you want to avoid things like that, make sure you do your redstone testing, guys. So that's fun. Anyway, any more stories about testing anyone wants to bring up, or should we move on?
The thing I was going to say was you can test
Repressed memory.
Okay.
Well, you could bring up that one challenge from IGS 1.5.
Just 1.5. Which
Was
one
it
are you
like
talking
the
about?
Pharaoh's Curse
It's been a while,
challenge?
so this is about what I can remember.
That one, yeah, that one
Where
didn't
people
work properly.
cursed people.
Yeah, I have a habit of like assuming my redstone works and not testing it.
I feel like we've had a few testing horrors, Mitch, but I can't really remember any.
Yeah.
Nah, we had no
just-
problems. We were perfect.
Just always assume that your challenges don't work until you test them. I'd say that's some good advice.
Oh, test everything.
Yeah.
Every challenge needs to be tested.
Also, it's not just redstone you need to test for, it's also like game balancing and difficulty.
I should have tested Demon Causeway, am I right?
Lol.
Don't even
Should
test
have
it.
tested Flick My Lever.
Before you even get anybody, self-test things, like self-test
True.
redstone or
You can,
something.
like anything you can test alone is easy enough to test alone. Anyway,
Mhm.
moving on. I said that really weirdly. Also, someone's echoing me again. Is it you, Mitch? Might be
Might
Mitch.
possibly.
Mitch, disgusting.
Also, Adam asked how my chips were. They were great.
So, if you've made it this far, congratulations! You have a fully built and tested show. Now we've got to do. Wow,
We've been doing it while we've been doing.
Yeah,
someone's been building a show.
Step-by-step tutorials. all
Someone's
of a
been
sudden.
building a show following our advice as we go.
Step 6.
Being incredible.
You built something
Now-
to enjoy the
anyway,
game show in 1
now-
hour. Nice job.
Now you've got a fully complete show. All you need to do is find a decent cast to play your show. No.
Decent.
It's got to be at least decent, if not good, you know?
Yeah.
Aglen, what do you think a good method of casting is? You've not really spoken much. yet recently.
I'll cover the general categories of casting.
Mm.
Well, first there is the prelims category. Just to do prelims, I really wouldn't tell people how they did in the prelim. It should be a combination of how they did and how they behaved, really. And if you tell people how they did, they might get salty when they came second, but since they behaved as though they were 9 and they didn't get casted. Then there's the Google Docs sign up, which is also pretty good. It solves that problem again. You can have a giant chat room in GSC and you have random people join and drag them in one by one, and then the rest of them get salty and want to kill themselves and chatter something.
I love doing that.
Amongst
I
other
do that
things.
all the
I do
time.
that for GSC events, and like it's always.
Yeah, for
I always
stream
feel
stuff.
I always feel so bad at like the last 2 people that I didn't drag in.
Mhm.
man.
The one I actually did.
That's about it for me.
I'd say there's a third category, which is invitational, where
Oh,
you
Yeah.
personally invite people without any sort of prelim or application. So I think these are good for different things, but Billy,
I mean, I've
would you-
done all
would you-
3 of them.
would you care to explain what the pros and cons of each of these 3 methods of casting
Yes,
is?
perfectly fine. Let's start with the prelim, since that was the original way that I casted Raven Season 2, is how I met Mitch. Prelims, we used them for Raven Season 2 and 3.5, and we used it for the elimination game. And the pros are that you're going to get, if you're going by times or however you judge them, you're going to get people who are good at the game, which means that you're going to get people who aren't just going to fall on the first jump of a parkour course, and you're going to have interesting contestants in terms of gameplay. But the con is that their personality could be utter dog shit. In the case of Mendra from Raven Season 3.5, who was a dirty cheater, he had a great prelim, but he cheated, and
Honestly,
you
I
can't
think
really avoid that with prelims.
It's the best type of casting, I'd say, for skill-based, highly skill-based.
Yeah,
shows.
yeah. For skill-based shows, you want to do prelims because you want people who are going to be able to actually produce that skill. I did that with Ninja Warrior as well, for the amount of it that I posted. What was the second? Version?
Second was applications.
Google Docs. Google
Everyone's
Docs
best
are-
friend.
Yes, I was going to say Google Docs are the best friend of small game show creators, because they're easy to set up. You can create sections. You can make it look fancy if you want to take the time to do so. And you can make as many questions required so that you can get to know your contestants and important details about them, which is pretty dang important. The problem is, unlike a prelim, you don't talk to them via a Google Doc. So if you don't know them beforehand, you could end up being with a squeaker, or they might not even have a working mic. People can lie. There's a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, some people, Gum, for instance, who was in Raven Season 6, when we did the application form for that, they had to be 15 or over to be in it, and Gum was 14 when he applied, and he lied. So that was
despicable. I can't believe you ruined the season.
Go.
Anyway, I think
completely ruined the season.
I think personally, applications are the way to go for social, manipulative type of games.
Yeah, for like Survivors, Big Brothers, shows where you need to have personality over skill.
Now everybody knows why Gun left the staff team.
And then you've got the third type, which is the exclusive invitations. Billy,
basically, invitationals are really iffy because we did this for Tagata, Mitch. Me and you, we sat in a chat for God knows how long discussing who we'd want for a perfect cast.
Ages.
And then Craftman said no. Really, invitationals are your best way at guaranteeing a cast that will work. Because invitationals are generally given to people that friends, close acquaintances, and just people that are gonna deliver. The problem is that everyone else gets upset because they had no chance to get in the show and they feel like it's an exclusive club, which has been something that I think the community and now the GSC has had to deal with for generations.
And there's also the con that there's always interesting people you might not know about who might be good. Anyway, what do you think the best way to go in general is then?
Oh God.
This is a question to everyone here, I think.
It varies show to show.
Yeah, I think it does vary from show to show because there are some shows that are just so big and so important that you just can't cast random people. You need to get people you trust. And then there are some shows where you need people who are good at challenges, and there's some shows where you need people who are going to be personality bombs.
I sometimes use a mixture of some of them. For instance, for my upcoming game show, Minute to Win It, we had applications and preliminaries, and whether you got in
that with Small Show too.
Whether you got in was based on like a combination of both of them, and I think that resulted in a pretty good cast that I'm not going to reveal here.
Marlon Tyler.
Marlon Tyler, absolutely.
Well, way.
By chance, or just out of interest, Lambo, how do you cast your shows?
Alright, so just like everyone else, really for me, it varies between show to show. I'm going to start with Survivorcraft. Survivorcraft is application-based, since obviously it's a more personality-based show. And then my crew and we discuss for like 5 hours on which ones we think are the best. Then for a show like Pig Games, it may be odd, but Pig Games is invitation-based, since I can, and really I don't have all the time in the world to set up a prelim because I have kind of a life. So I mean,
I don't.
Lambo, why do you always sound like you're in the middle of excitement and pure sadness?
I think I think the best way to cast people for a show is to buy a plot in GSC Con and hide your invitations on the roof of a parkour course.
Good point.
That is a great idea.
I mean, the best way to get into one of my shows is to become my $10 Patreon, and you get priority access to all my streamed events.
Nice.
Can I just say, this is unrelated to the whole thing, but another opponent conceded, and I don't know what I've done. I think I'm scaring people, you guys.
You guys want to get in my show since Possessed Bobby.
And for anyone,
you first,
for anyone who's interested, we might do a podcast in the future about how to get into shows, but that's
Oh,
still
that
maybe.
was what I was going to suggest. But if we're going to do that, if you're not going to do that,
That's not really the
huge
topic
one that I
of
think
this.
people
Not really the
wanna
topic
know
of
about.
this podcast. This podcast is how to make shows, not to get into them. So is that everything we've got to talk about with casting, or has anyone else got another point?
oh, and make sure you cast at least one girl. Otherwise, people will not let you hear
People
the end
will
of it.
love your show if you cast a girl.
People hated Tagata because it was a sausage fest.
Yeah, nobody could watch it. Everybody watched
If
a
you-
minute.
if
and
you
they
wanna
were
be-
Zero
like,
views.
Tip,
Sure,
if you
I
wanna
would
be-
like it. But at
on
the
the flip
same
side
time,
of the coin,
you
if
know,
you want to be casted and you're male, get a sex change, and then.
yeah,
Trust
Anyway.
me, it works for everyone.
it's gonna work for someone in the future,
Good
isn't it?
advice.
Anyway, now you've got your cast and you're ready to host, and it's the big night. You've got
GSC event.
Wait. What
Plan your event
tips?
24 hours in advance.
So what tips do we have
really-
for when it comes to hosting? I think a good
Listing
point to
of
start
time.
with is finding a date that your cast can make. Because that segues as well, you know. Well,
Hosting, at least in terms of planning and finding a date, is difficult, and every showrunner show I've been in has had trouble with it because literally, you are going to be casting people from every fucking time zone. There's no way you're going to get a show where everyone's in the same time zone unless you plan ahead in advance. And
you'll probably need backups
in that-
as well because not everyone's going to be able to make the date that you want.
yeah, not everyone's going to be able to make the date. You're going to want
Yeah.
back. If it's a multiple recording session, then oh, good luck. Because the thing is, multiple recording sessions are great, but you need to have a cast that doesn't have a life.
Once you've done the first recording session, you've got to realize that for a second recording session, the backup you can't have backups anymore.
Yeah. And you need to at least make sure that you get rid of some people in the first recording session. Get some of them eliminated so that it's easier to schedule. But
I still envy Tagata's ability to be able to cast 11 of the cast members, and then 10 of the cast members, and then 9. How do you manage to get them back every time, and then still couldn't do
It's
it?
a long wait.
And then
They
still
would-
couldn't do
it
a
was,
reunion.
it was a long fucking wait. I mean, we recorded.
You
that
still
over 6
managed to do it
months.
though,
The thing about that
despite
was
having
everybody,
Australians as well.
everybody
Well, no, the
really
thing is-
liked the show, so they were dedicated
True,
to showing
true.
up at times.
And it also helps
keep
that
playing.
if they couldn't find a time, I would just tell them I'll cancel the show if they don't figure out a date. So that got them moving. That's my favorite thing to do. If your contestants can't find a date, threaten to cancel your show. They will be on it in a fucking second. It's great.
Perfect.
Now everyone knows the secret. Fuck.
Yeah, you,
Oh man,
yeah,
I'm gonna use that one for next
oh,
time.
man.
Hey guys, I'm canceling Survivor Craft, the ancient game.
Okay.
Find me my date.
Another
I've
thing you might
lost
want to
it.
find is helpers and cameras.
Oh yeah, it's very important.
These should be people that you trust. Your cameras. In fact, if it's an early show, if it's like one of your first shows, you probably don't need cameras if you can record it yourself.
Or better yet, just get all your contestants to record it for you.
I
But-
think if you should have less cameras for your first few shows because then it makes the editing easier. But we're
Yeah,
gonna get to that
that's-
later.
And but as you get to a bigger shows, you might want to have a few extra cameras to make sure you capture everything that you want. Stop missing those important game-changing moments and regretting that you didn't catch them on camera.
And if you did miss them on camera, just get them to refilm it
That's a secret to
multiple
get tip.
times.
Also, thing is, like,
Multiple times. Stig
That's-
finding the idol on episode 2. No audio, just some cheesy music in the background. Clearly wasn't filmed after the series.
Yep.
Also, like the amount of cameras you need really depends on the show. Like, you
I
know,
suppose
like
if you're recording
There's
like
still,
an
like,
amazing race or
Yeah,
something like
Amazing
that,
Oh,
Race.
if Amazing
you're
Race,
gonna
you're
need
a camera for every team.
tons of cameras.
You want
Too
like
many cameras.
essentially
Half
a
your
camera
server will
for
be
two
filled with
teams.
cameras.
Well, one
Adam actually
camera
brings
per
up a
two.
good point.
Yeah.
For your shows, depending on your camera's recording software, the time that you record the show could be a big factor in your cameras because, you know, the footage is going to take up hard drive space on their computers when they film it. And you've got to make sure that you can film your show in a concise time so that they don't end up crashing their computer.
Don't worry, my shows only take 14 hours.
Back in the early days when I didn't have a second hard drive, recording my shows was an utter nightmare because of the big file sizes I use with my recording software.
I've got 2 terabytes nowadays, so...
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I'm planning on getting another external hard drive soon.
What do you need that for?
External hard drives are your friends.
They really are.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that this is what Billy and Lambo and I will know about, and this is actually being the host of the show.
Oh yes.
You've got to have a good personality, which I know I have, but Lambo and Billy lack it.
I mean, I have awards next to me, so I know I've got a good personality. 3 actually.
But you've got to have a personality. I think I've already said that.
You have.
But I think it's an important point that deserves to be said twice. Billy, you can.
My advice would be don't try and be someone else. Don't try and be another host, because if you look at me and you look at Unique and you look at Lambo or any of the showrunners, you can tell that they are hosting their show and it is them, because we all have these unique aspects of our hosting that kind of, okay, fuck's sake. We all have these unique aspects and tells that kind of differentiate us. Unique is, I can't really explain it, but he's just got something.
It's difficult to explain personality.
It's difficult to explain, but I would say
Lambo's demonic.
Some basic.
I got the voice of Jesus.
Yeah, you do. I can give some base advice, like, because it's the same. When I was doing theatre in school, you kind of have to learn how to act in front of people. And one of the big things, don't freeze up. If you need to learn lines, just kind of get an idea of what you want to say beforehand. If you're not good at improv. Oh God, I was going to say something. Be entertaining in that you don't want to talk monotone. You want to raise your voice sometimes, lower your voice sometimes. Don't be afraid to have fun with the contestants and just command your show, because you're the person who is leading your contestants through the show, and they are looking to you for guidance to go through each of the challenges, explaining things, and calling out shots. If you aren't a good host, your show will fucking burn.
I think as the role of a host, it's good to imagine yourself as being. I mean, it is in fact your job to be entertaining, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be filling in the blank moments when the contestants aren't speaking, trying to get them excited, trying to entertain the audience as well. You've got to
try and get them speaking as well. If they're not speaking, just kind of ask them a few questions, pry into them, talk about their social lives and their really tragic backstories.
Or in the middle of a challenge, ask them like what they're doing, or
just say that you're eating a jammy Dodger and listen to the reactions.
Right. Lambo, what tips do you think you could give about hosting?
All right, first thing, you need to channel the voice of Jesus.
All
right. Really, for me, I've been hosting for like too long in my life now, but for me, it's just, once you're getting started, just, keep practicing. Like, if you're doing anything else, like, as Billy's been talking about with like practicing lines, like, just like practice acting like you're hosting. Like, even if you're doing a practice game, still act like it's recorded.
While you are testing.
Okay. Yes.
Try commentating while your testers are testing.
Sorry, something really big happened in my game, so I couldn't finish that. But while you were testing, holy shit, yeah, I know. I think when we tested before, I'd have Billy commentate over a few things and just And actually, I also had you flew over some stuff in Game Mode 3 as well, like a few times, just to get a sense of camera angles and
yes,
stuff.
just so that you.
So that's really
important too.
it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing I'll say for hosting, and this is actually very important, and I personally, I can't watch a show if the host is not clear and concise. Try not to slur your words. Try and make sure that people can understand you. That is going to be a problem for people who might have thick accents or people who aren't natively speaking English. That can be a problem, but it is something that you've got to kind of deal with if you want to make your mark on this scene. It's kind of cruel, but it's something you've got to deal with. I mean, I'm not going to watch someone speak in German.
On that topic, I know it's not really done, but as the I guess I'm gonna use the word showrunner here, but you don't necessarily have to be a GSC showrunner. As the person running the show, you do not necessarily have to be the host.
Yeah.
Of the show.
Look at Rasa.
I know that like
a team
in GSC, basically almost every single show, the person running the show is the host, but you don't have to be. If you're not very good at hosting, you can always get someone who is good at hosting to do it for you.
Because who knows, you might be better at the editing side of things, and that's where you're comfortable, and you could get like a friend who is really outgoing and is like just that sociable host that you need, that Jeff Probst that you need. And because of that, I'm going to post a random picture of Jeff Probst in general on GSC and see if anybody reacts.
That sounds like a great
people
idea.
watching people watching the podcast live will react, right?
Exactly.
By people watching this stream live, do you mean Adam?
Yeah.
He's in there.
Shout out to the 9 people watching the podcast right now live. Hopefully hundreds more.
Oh, Lavo, congrats! You leveled up on top.
Hey, let's go.
Back on topic. What was the top? Okay, if you absolutely insisting on hosting a show yourself, you don't have an interesting personality, you can always build one up. If you look at my old game shows, my hosting was garbage, and I should probably delete the videos and send an assassin back in time to kill myself.
You won't get it first time.
Yeah, definitely.
Also,
the assassin won't get him first time. He's already trained his past self to prepare for this.
The assassin tries to
the
snipe me.
coming.
I'm like, oh no, I dropped my pen, and I duck and miss the bullet.
I know Unique says send an assassin back, but there is another alternative that you can do for your first show. You can do a Scottish accent, and people think you're weird.
Absolutely.
Oh man.
That's something you've done well though. You put on the voice, but also that conveys character through that. So that keeps people interested.
I was so addicted to Raven as a child. I was James Mackenzie for like 2 years of my life.
Well, I mean, should I host like an entire game show, like host it as Korg from Thor Ragnarok?
Yes.
It's not that, but it's Thor Ragnarok. My name's Korg.
One thing I'd like to point out though,
as you can see,
is that if you're absolutely stubborn that you need to host your show, and not get someone else to do it, there's not really much of an excuse to have a bad personality. Because, I mean, just look at Toast. He doesn't even speak, and he has personality in his shows.
Toast is one of the most...
I don't know why, but like...
personality out of like, everyone.
I watched the entirety of his shows, just even though he doesn't ever talk. And it's great. So, shout out to Toast, I suppose.
Could just be Luigi Yield.
You could, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if Toast is someone's alt. Okay, I would be a little surprised. Anyway.
What are you talking about? Not surprised? That'd be the biggest GSC plot twist ever.
That would be like that we'd have to shut down the GSC after that.
we would like.
It
you'd
was
have to
founded
shut down
on
for a day
lies.
at least.
Oh man.
We
Holy
need to
shit.
hit the prune button again.
Perfectly
Can we-
balanced. As all
Can we just
things
confirm
should be.
that Eagland's still alive?
Oh yes, I finished my Hearthstone dungeon run and I got a legendary from a pack. I'm super happy.
Nice.
Congrats.
You've not.
Nice
I
job.
I guess you've
What
not
the
really had
fuck?
too much to comment on the last couple of categories, have you?
And I've had like all 3 of my opponents concede, and now I'm facing my brother.
Great. Anyway, the last topic that we must touch upon here is
Your game show is almost complete.
Yeah, I'm not doing that stupid cringy stuff
Just
again.
add water. Just add
It was
water.
at this point where your game show was almost complete.
See,
Yeah.
me and Lambo, this is what we're talking about hosting.
Your recording's tainted. What?
Here's
The
what
last
I made
thing,
earlier.
the
Your
last thing
footage
thou
is
shalt
corrupted.
do, and this is actually one of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt edit thy game show.
No.
Disgusting.
Before
I'm
you
sorry,
game show,
Eagland.
just one quick thing before you edit your game show, before you host it, thou shalt test your camera to see if thou get audio.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh,
you
man.
you also want to know that you should also probably just look at your recordings and see
Mhm.
if like
Like, just make sure they're not
whichever-
fucked up.
basically if the person who's recording your show, most likely another person, if their camera looks like they are on like a revolving roller coaster, you should at
I
that
wonder
point
who that could be.
It's such
likely
there's
fire
a
them.
massive intense thinking emoji right now.
I wonder who
Yeah.
that could be.
Anyway,
Also,
I'm
make sure
shy
that your
6'2",
camera is actually
everybody.
willing to give you the
because
footage.
anyway, we've not got long left and we don't want to run
Yeah.
11 minutes over.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Editing.
last topic, editing. Yes, edit. This comes with practice. Yeah.
This assumes
You
you,
are-
actually want your show to be on YouTube. I couldn't care less. I don't want to spend 10 hours per episode editing to get 200 views. I'm not
suppose
going to bother,
if-
but these guys might.
You only need to upload it if your payoff from your YouTube audience will be good, I guess. If you really want your audience's reactions, if you want them to,
I suppose you
to
get better with
experience
editing
it
over
as well.
time.
yeah. Some massive shows like Tagata, take ages to edit. I'm sure. I know that. Okay, I'll use Ulfanon 5 instead.
Yeah.
Then. Oh god, it was like 10 hours per episode to edit that. I'm not even kidding, it's not a joke.
Oh my god, that's like 10 hours.
Yeah. Whoa! That's a number that's similar to 9 and 11.
Wow!
It's somewhere in that region, yeah.
I do
Um,
want to say though that you shouldn't compare the amount of time you edit your show to the amount of time someone else edits their shows, because I think it's a bad I don't know what the word is. I don't think it's healthy when people try and compare their shows, like, oh, my little show took an hour to edit, but this person's show took 15 hours to edit. Mine's obviously shit. Don't get into that headspace, because the amount of editing that your show needs is the amount of editing that you do to it. You don't need to think, okay, I need to be editing this for 3 hours, and then after 3 hours, I'll stop editing. Just go for it. Edit what you can. Learn from any editing mistakes, anything feedback, and just keep going. I've been editing for 5 years, and I can say safely that Unique and Luigi are better editors than me at game shows.
What? No, I'm not.
You
I
really
could-
are.
I honestly
I'm really.
couldn't.
I'm awful at the
Okay.
details. I can't
Okay,
do
I s-
details.
I, s-
I'm moving
I,
shit.
I
I'm
don't
green
I don't want to boast, but I guess I know the format I want to go for. I'm just not as good at editor as you, I would say.
I'm better at coming up with a format. Like, I think for editing, a lot of your shows, or let's focus on like one show. Say you've got insert show here. Brilliant name, I know.
I love that show.
And it's got 7 episodes. Chances are, aside from maybe the first episode and the finale, because you've got your intro sequence and you've got your finale with the ending sequence. Chances are most of those videos and episodes are going to follow the same formula. So in your editing software, if you have specific edits that you do that you know are going to come back in future episodes, save it as a preset. Save your settings. That way you can just click a few buttons and then boom, you have it. That's what I do with
I
Raven
do that.
on a
I do
live
that as well.
system.
I
That's what
actually
I did in Tagata.
I use Camtasia because I'm a Camtasia scrub and don't have.
I used to use Camtasia when I was like 2.
I used to use Movie Maker.
I still use Camtasia. I presets, but what I do have is I save projects that I sort of load up the. I save projects for different parts of the show in that I can go back and edit specific video footage in. That's what I do. You don't have to be okay. I think we should appeal to the startup game show people here, though.
Yeah.
If it's one of your first shows, you still need to edit. It's not really an excuse not to. Even if you can't get good editing software, even if you don't know how to edit, you should at least be able to know how to watch your video back and cut out the boring bits.
Fan uses Movie Maker, and he does fairly okay shows.
At the very least, cut out things like going between the lobby and the challenges, and
cut out when you're typing commands in the chat and you're not talking, stuff like that. Silences.
As a bit more higher up level, cut out boring parts of the challenge, etc.
Don't reveal the flatland, you numpty.
That's a good point.
That kind of works with the camera, though. Don't fly too high up if you're
also,
camera,
but
it's like a low ceiling.
And then if you're a bit more experienced, you can edit in things like, say there was a boring part of a challenge, but you still want to keep it in. Edit in some extra commentary or something to keep that part interesting. I do that so much, and the viewer never notices because it just seems so right to watch it like that.
I do.
In both Raven and Tagata, I edited commentary in over most of the challenges because my Raven commentary, I can't see what everyone's doing at the same time. And Tagata, aside from the first challenge and then Mitch shouted at me for screaming at the Tonga tribe, I edited all of my commentary in post.
Awful. That was a repressed memory. Why do you have to bring that
oh my
back
god,
up?
do you remember which Strikeout season was it? There was a season of Strikeout which blew my mind because he edited in Striker edited in his own commentary like after the season, and I didn't notice.
Like season 6 or
season 7? I think it was 7. I think that blew my mind. Anyway, I think
the major thing with editing is that don't be afraid to YouTube and learn how to do different editing styles. Don't be afraid to learn. It may seem like a lot at first, and it can be scary. It can be a little bit exciting. It can be a little bit tense. But when you get the hang of it, and in the end you have this brilliant video, at least in your opinion, it's always going to be brilliant when you make it, and then 1 year down the line you'll hate it. But when you've created it and you post it on YouTube and you get that comment saying first,
you just know you've done a good job.
You know you've done a good job.
All 23.
There's just one little extra topic that I want to cover. We've only got like 5 minutes left, so yeah. Quickly, one last little bit to editing is thumbnails and YouTube metadata. I suppose falls into this category.
YouTube metadata, use TubeBuddy.
True. Or if you're Billy, make your thumbnails clickbaity and use the same thinking
only in
Billy
Minecraft.
icon. Same
I've changed
thing.
it.
Oh,
That's
you
not for my
changed
game
it finally.
shows. I'm using the one that cancelled me, but for the game shows, a simple way that you can't go wrong: have a render of either yourself or a contestant, screenshot of a challenge in that episode, or just a really nice build of your season. Maybe just have a little effect on the outside.
Put the logo on
picture. Put the logo down. Put a number down. Boom.
Nice.
And another thing about thumbnails: never cram anything in the bottom right corner because the
you're right.
It.
Yeah,
you're
the
right.
title bar, the time code will cover the bottom right corner. So
we've only got a few minutes left. So is there anything else anyone wants to add?
Any questions?
Any
Yeah,
questions?
Quick questions.
Quickly, chat.
5
Ask.
minutes. You've got 5 minutes.
Chop chop.
Wow, they're
This
so
is my
slow.
fault.
It's like they're listening to it like 20 seconds behind or something. Damn.
Whoa! How do you come up with that?
Don't be
Don't be
Marlon.
Marlon.
That's a really good
That's
question.
a good question. Yeah, there's a lot of philosophical stuff you could go
Do
into
be
that.
Marlon.
Do be Marlon.
Maybe
I
Marlon
don't.
should be Marlon.
On that topic though, don't compare yourself to Marlon. In fact, don't compare yourself to anyone. You are yourself. Make the game show that you want it to be.
It is a good point though, because some people will compare their shows to bigger shows that have similar concepts, and it's like you don't need to do that.
But then know that Marlon's show will always be better than you.
Who's
Who's your favorite character in My Hero Academia? Fukage Tokoyami, my profile picture.
Oh, disgusting.
I've never
It's my
played.
profile picture.
Is it a game or is
It's
it
not, no, it's an anime, but it's getting a game on the Switch.
I've never watched it.
It's actually, well, it's a manga before it was an anime.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
How do you make a game show, 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 gay show, game show, V?
So you see, planning is the most important part.
Yeah, let's start with the concept, guys.
we
So you gotta
come
come
Please
up with a
refer to
console
the
circuit.
5-minute point of this video, this self-help video, to make a game show in 1 hour.
Cool.
And now you should have a fully built game show in 1
Nice.
One
Anyway,
I built earlier.
do you guys think it's time we wrapped up then?
Here's one I built earlier, announces Minecraft Survivor 2.
Okay, I'm gonna play the outro music now.
Whoa!
Wait, we have outro
Oh,
music?
there it
Yep.
goes.
Oh man, guys, we've
We'll
not got long
finally
before the end of the
focus
stream.
on my
Everyone should say
Hearthstone
goodbye.
game.
Everyone say
Oh,
bye.
boy.
Lovely.
Thanks for watching. Go subscribe to the
Holy
YouTube channel.
shit.
25 subscribers away from 5,000.
We got a little bit. Hold
Yeah.
on, still a bit longer. This is
To
awkward.
conclude, Anne Robinson is a fucking ghost at this point.
Oh right, nice.
And everything is based off the mole.
Goodbye.
Excellent.
Hello.
No.